p.m. It's 6 p.m. I had to do the double gavel. I'd like to call tonight's meeting of the Canandaigua Town Board to order. We'll begin with a pledge of allegiance led by Councilwoman Adeline Rudolph.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America,
which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
I know, I hate the delay. I know. All right, Jean, would you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Town Council Member John Casey,
Oh, yeah.
Town Council Member Terry Fennelly,
Present.
Town Council Member Adeline Rudolph,
Here.
Town Council Member David Sauter,
Present.
Supervisor Jared Simpson.
Present. I would like to declare Council Member Terry Fennelly necessarily remote for this evening's meeting. Jean, can you confirm the meeting was properly advertised?
Yes.
All right. We do have a few birthdays we'd like to recognize. A few sitting right here, right with me. January 23rd, we have John Casey. Happy birthday, John. The 25th, we have Justin Damon. The February 3rd, we have Judge Jones. February 7th, we have Dave Sauter. Happy birthday. Thank you. A little celebration for you on your birthday, I see. And then February 10th, we have Brecken Allgood. We do have some communication. There is one piece in the communication binder, thanking code enforcement and the planner for their help from a town resident. This brings us to the first privilege of the floor. Is there anyone who would like to be heard at this time? All right, seeing no hands and nobody online, we're going to priority business. So we do have some special guests with us tonight. And we had to do a little bit of skullduggery and chicanery. So come on up, Gene. So Judge Prohl, would you come on up here, please? So I don't know if I feel kind of on pins and needles because I am in this. We are in Judge Prohl's world right here, Judge Prohl's world, and not a lot of people know. But Judge Prohl has given a lot of service to the town of Canandaigua. He started as a town board member. He went on to become a judge, as he still is today. He even taught my mom at FLCC, going back as a second career. Okay, not when she was, as a second career when she was there. So he has given a lifelong full of community service to the town. So as the I'm all tongue tied tonight. Members of the town board and town staff and elected officials would like to recognize and thank you for your dedication to the town of Canandaigua and present you with this little gift of Canandaigua Lake. It shows the depth in the areas around it. And you can probably put a little dot where you are on there. You can see that. So that is one thing for you. So this is from as a thank you. Thank you. So we do have a resolution in tonight's agenda. And this is the resolution that we'll have, but I just want to read some parts of it right now. I'm glad you didn't read the agenda. You don't read the agendas anymore, do you? No. Okay. Because if you did, this wouldn't be a surprise. Which it probably wasn't anyway, because you're like, why are you dragging me to the town hall? That was my first question. Yeah, what's going on here? Is there dinner or
Oh, it was a band.
Nice.
Let's see, get kids involved. And
Made him wear a tie to band.
they're even wearing the white shirt and however it works.
That's funny.
So just a few of the whereas. So the town board of the town of Canandaigua wishes to pause in its deliberations to honor and recognize the Honorable David W. Prohl, Town Justice, Town of Canandaigua. And whereas Town Justice Prohl has honorably served the residents of the town of Canandaigua for 50 years. And whereas Judge Prohl was appointed and subsequently reelected 4 times as a member of the town board of the town of Canandaigua, beginning February 28th, 1973, serving until February 1st, 1985. Did that state sound right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Whereas Judge Prohl was appointed to serve as town justice commencing March 1st, 1985, and has continuously served as town justice for the past 38 years, from 1985 to the present. And it continues talking about other careers. One thing that I do want to, this came out in your resignation letter as the town board to then Supervisor Holden. You said, "My greatest pleasure has been in working with individuals and groups that believed in Canandaigua as a model town and a great place to live. I am convinced that I learned as much as I contributed." So you definitely did, and you continued to contribute, and we've learned a lot from you in your service. And thank you very much, sir.
Yes.
I whipped out a 3x5 card here at the last moment. And, what time does the band play? I'm heading to 7. Thank you so much for this recognition of my years of service. Yes, I did start on February 28th of 1973. I was appointed town councilman at that point to sit at these hallowed tables and deal with the town business. And then in March of 1985, I became town justice by appointment again. And I've been running elections ever since and enjoying the job and starting March 1, I start my 51st year as in public service here at the town. We've had a rough last 2 or 3 years, as everyone has had. We have a backlog yet from the COVID type of shutdown that we had. We still have new cases coming in every day and every week. We're required as justices to take a continuing ed program, and a lot of you in various professional services have to take continuing ed during the year. We have an exam, we have to stay current. In my case, I have to make sure that I make sense most of the time. But that's true of all of us, isn't it? Anyway, the state is pushing more and more right now for a separation of various parts of government. They're saying that there's the executive branch with Jared, and there's the legislative branch with the town board, and there's judicial court system too, of course. But in spite of that, Doug Finch and Jared have been pushing, and I've agreed with them, and we've continued this, a dialogue amongst those services that you have, the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. Doesn't mean we do each other's job, but it means we keep dialoguing for the betterment of our community, no doubt about it. Canandaigua Town Court is a people's court. We deal with criminal and civil matters. The state is allowing us to do more and more counseling now. We can't give legal advice, but we're allowed to do a little more counseling because people are lost souls right now. I think you can see that. Our cities are in turmoil, and it might spread to the countryside too, but it hasn't so far, thank goodness. We have a little bit more domestic violence, I regret to say. We have about 40 to 50 DWIs a year. And then we have all the other types of situations too. But the whole job has been very rewarding. And the rewarding part is when I believe that, first of all, everybody's entitled to stub their toe and get past that and get through the system and come out on the other side a better person. Secondly, with adolescents, we don't want them to have a permanent record when they're 18, which haunts them later when they go for some kind of a government job which is secure. But some of the top secrets are not that secure. But anyway, if they go for a government job, we don't want them to be discriminated against because they have a record from their prior childhood experiences. There's a gentleman I see a couple, 3 times a year at the post office. He had a DWI with us. And every time I see him, he says to me, I haven't had a drink since you sentenced me that night. He says, what you said to me at sentencing has changed my life. And that touches me deeply, okay? The problem is, since we deal with 40 to 50 DWIs a year, I can't remember his name. I remember he was there for DWI, but I can't remember his name, nor can I remember what I said. I'd like to know that so I could tell others the same thing. But he says it has changed his life. And so if we can do that occasionally, all the better for it. I've had 12 supervisors now, including Jared and several highway superintendents and town clerks that I've worked with, and it's been a pleasure doing that. Jared is very much like his dad too, in the way he performs his services. So I thank you for your support. I thank my family. A lot of them are here tonight. My 3 kids always backed me. Heather's been my campaign manager every time we had an election. And more than anything, I thank the people from the town of Canandaigua, our residents who have had the faith and trust in me to keep me around this long, and I'll continue to do the job. Thank you so much for being here.
And I would encourage any,
Can I just say one thing about Judge Paul?
yes, this, now,
I know.
I won't count against your 3 minutes that you're probably gonna want
Very-
later.
very
Okay.
quick. Almost 36 years ago, you married my daughter and my son-in-law, and they're still married. And I thank you for that. Because they're still married, they're still together.
My ceremonies come with that kind of guarantee.
It's legally binding.
I always say to people, now, if you're getting married on Friday night, try it out. If it doesn't work by Monday morning,
Come on
come
back.
back to me. We'll read the whole ceremony backwards. But occasionally they do it for 36 years. Thank you for saying.
And I'd also recommend, if anyone has not seen Judge Pearl perform in the courtroom, to stop in, any of the board members, stop in by choice. Stop in and just sit in the back and watch them work and perform. And you will turn a few heads as you walk in, trust me, because I came into court a few times and I've turned a few heads as people are looking and wondering what's going on. But anyway, it's a good experience to see them work and to do their job. And thank you very much, Judge Pearl, and for your family for being here tonight.
Thank you.
So you are dismissed. If you don't have to stay. Easy there. Go.
Another one to pick up.
Yeah. So thank you so much. You don't need to stay for the whole time. It's gonna get,
Well, the kids have to stay.
the kids have, Brady has to stay.
Trying to record.
Yeah, Brady needs to stay. Everybody else can go. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Take care. See you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Enjoy the band concert.
And I just wanted to thank everybody involved, Doug and Jean, for being on top of all of this and knowing that we have this this milestone coming up, because that's a big deal, 50 years in service in community service like this. Okay, so we do have, for those of you who are not here, Saturday we had a special board meeting to discuss and prioritize goals. I just wanted to read into the record the goals that we have come up with, and we will be setting a time to discuss these and go into more depth at a later point. But I wish to thank the residents who were here for that meeting, for the board members for their contributions and the discussion that we had, because we had some great discussion at that meeting. And these are, from this, the town board will develop 5 priority goals that will be actionable goals for this upcoming year. And this is in no particular order. To develop and implement the bid plan, to prioritize stages of and implement the Ananda Upland Improvement Plan. Finalize a plan for the transfer station upgrades, be prepared to implement those plans prior to the potential landfill closure of 2028. No increase in taxes. Prioritize and implement stages of sidewalk and multimodal transportation improvement plan. Prioritize and implement stages of, should be a road improvement plan. And then prioritize identified watershed protection projects and develop a plan to implement those. So Jim, there's that. And Jean, here's this. So those are just so you know, from those, we will be discussing and coming up with actionable goals that will drive us for the next year. And that takes me to the next thing. The next scheduled town board meeting is February 13th. There is a chance that due to circumstances beyond our control, there might only be 2 town board members available for that meeting in person. So we do need to take a look at that. So I do want to take this time right now before we get into the other business to set a date for February. And I'm assuming the later, the better.
Sure, I don't mind me mentioning also, we were gonna have a meeting ahead of that.
Ahead of it.
Yeah, so thank you for reminding me to clarify. Ahead of that meeting, we will have another town board meeting separate from that to discuss the goals and to come up with some action items and action steps to reach those goals. So that'll be the same night as the next meeting. That's why we're trying to get it set for now. So any dates? I know the 27th was put out as a potential date. The other issue we have, and the reason it's not on our typical third week, is that that is President's Week. And there is training that week as well in New York City. So any thoughts on the 27th? Is that going to put us?
I'm good with it.
I'm good with it.
It works for me.
Okay.
Hopefully.
All right, Gene? Does that work?
27th? You said
27th.
you're-
Yeah, does that work?
February 27th.
Good.
We'll have to
I
run,
will be there in person.
we'll have to run a special utility abstract facing of those.
Okay.
So,
But that would be a- Yeah. Okay, perfect. All right, so
Are we doing the 5 PM and the
Yes.
6 PM?
and the reason we have to do this first is because we set the other meeting for the 13th, and then afterwards we discussed and realized that the 13th was going to be an issue. So the 27th of February, we will have our planning meeting at 5 PM to continue our goal setting discussion. And the regular town board meeting will be at 6 PM. So you can get that on your calendars. Any questions or other comments on that?
Yes, please.
Yes.
We are going to modify the finance committee meeting also then?
The finance committee meeting, great question. That would move the finance committee meeting to the 23rd. Okay, thank you for noticing that. Does that work for everybody? That would be Thursday, the 23rd.
I may not be able to make that. That's a chemo day.
Okay,
It does not work for me either, and I'm the finance chair,
Yeah.
so maybe the 16th. I don't know if we can do.
Well,
that.
we won't have the agenda ready for the 16th.
Does it have to be on a Thursday?
No, Friday?
I'm out. That's the.
That's the week that you're out. Okay,
Plan. The Tuesday, no, that whole week is very
yeah,
bad.
we
for
don't
me.
have the agenda, so we might have to,
Not earlier the same day as the town board meeting, just to go through it.
Is there a
yeah,
vice chair for the finance committee
You saying Tuesday, then it's in the
that
morning?
could handle that meeting?
Yeah, the 27th.
vice chair, remind me of finance,
Didn't we
Me,
look at you?
Dave,
Yeah.
so, but Terry's out for that day on the 23rd.
And I'm out that day.
Doug just suggested
We could do the
the morning of the
27th.
27th, if I'm hearing you right.
I would not be able to attend because I have county meetings that day, but I mean, I can, and they're right at 10, so
Yeah,
we could figure it out. Usually it gets out soon enough. They usually are quick enough, so I don't want to hold that up. I can join in when I'm free and available.
it's not ready on Tuesday, right?
No. So the 27th or the 23rd? What is preference?
I prefer the 27th at 11.
Fair enough. Does that work?
10:45.
Let's bump
I have a
it,
doctor's appointment before that. so-
let's bump it to 11. That way I should have a better chance of getting out of my 10 o'clock meeting. Okay,
What time, 11?
11, does that work?
Thank you.
Yep.
On Tuesday, the 28th.
Yeah.
Does that work? We good? Terry?
It's good.
Okay, Look at that, record time, I think, for coming up with meeting time and dates and multiples. Okay, perfect. We were going to have and I think we might want to bump this up to finance, but I would encourage town board members to look at our reserve fund monies and look at our finance plan for our reserve fund policy and our budgeting policy with that. So we can have a further discussion on that, so we can allocate funds as necessary. We would need to do that by resolution. But make sure you look those over, come up with some ideas and goals for that, the money, so we can get it put into the reserve fund so we're in compliance.
I know that town manager Finch had a presentation on that he kind of wanted to explain to us.
Yeah.
When did you want him?
When would you like to go over that?
I mean, I'd rather before the 28th of February, that's pretty
Right.
far away, so.
Okay,
Do we need to set a specific meeting time for that, or could we do it at one of the existing town board meetings, or? Like the ordinance or people planning public work? I don't have a problem with it, I just.
do you want a finance meeting at the beginning of the month prior to your,
I mean, we were on, what were we on? We were on 17th before, or what were we on? Or the 16th?
well, we could do that anytime.
Yeah.
We
I
just need
well,
enough
I
time
just
to
figured
post
people
it.
had a time hanging out somewhere.
Mhm. So we're just looking at another day for a finance meeting to discuss the reserve funds,
I could do this.
because that's really a discussion. You don't want, that's a discussion in itself.
Want to do it after LBC? Let's do it after LBC.
The date,
16th,
15th,
16th.
16th.
what's the time on that?
At what time?
So how long do you think LBC is gonna be?
How about if we said 10:30 or 10:45? If that works.
Yeah,
Well,
that
we get the
works.
LDC from 8:30 to 10.
Right.
So let's do 10 to 11 with finance.
Well,
And if we run late?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're 10:45 that you have an available slot, right?
10:45 is a little bit easier for me.
So let's do
10:45.
10:45 to noon
2:16,
on the 16th. And we can talk about that presentation and maybe a little bit more about the reserve funds.
perfect. Okay, I didn't check, Gene. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
You could also maybe approve your utility bills then, if that helps.
We can do it without too. Get permission to approve. Okay. All right, any other comment, any other priority business to come forward? All right. We do have a couple public hearings for tonight. We don't have any special presentations. We have those before. We do have the first public hearing on a proposed 6-month moratorium on large-scale solar projects. So this time I declare the public hearing open and invite all who would wish to be heard at this time to share their thoughts for their comments.
I do have a question about
Yeah.
that. Why? Why do you want a 6-month moratorium on large scale solar projects?
Any comments before I
I mean,
share my thoughts?
it was a recommendation from the ordinance committee while we were determining this solar law before it goes into effect.
Okay, so it's based on gathering information, not
It-
based on,
It'll be rescinded when the solar law is changed.
I couldn't find the answer to that.
Yeah, so we wanted to make sure that everything was set, everything was taken care of, that we made sure that we knew that we were looking at all avenues and angles and just made sure that residents were protected and that we were doing the best that we could. So this 6-month period will give a chance to do that.
And is that enough time?
Hopefully, to get that done and get the ordinance, like what other communities are doing, and see how that'll work. Yeah. Would anyone else like to be heard at this time? Yeah, go ahead to the, perfect, to the microphone, and if you can state your name for the record, that would be fantastic.
John Ahern from Couch White. We are attorneys for AMP Energy and ASA Canandaigua New York Solar LLC. I'll keep it brief because I did forward an email over to a letter over to the board earlier today. We were reviewing the proposed moratorium, and as I put in my letter, we did notice something that perhaps was overlooked. The moratorium would prevent someone such as my client who has an approval that would expire during the pendency of this moratorium. It would prevent them from getting an extension of that approval. So we would ask the board to consider just a brief exemption in the moratorium language that would allow the planning board to hear and decide on extension applications. Otherwise, without that, what is essentially happening is the moratorium would prevent my client from obtaining a building permit and therefore keeping their permits valid and essentially causing them to just lapse by operation of the moratorium. So the purpose of a moratorium, as I'm sure you've all been explained, is, to maintain the status quo. So nothing changes while you are all looking at a new zoning ordinance or an amended zoning ordinance. And this exception would essentially maintain the status quo for someone who has an approval already. They wouldn't be able to get a building permit to construct it. They wouldn't be able to move forward other than to maintain their approval status with their permits. So unless anyone has any questions for me, that's all.
Do you have plans to move forward in the 6-month period that moratorium is going to be in effect?
Correct. That's what my understanding is.
So you would be putting that solar array in prior to 6
Well,
months from now?
they wouldn't be allowed to under the moratorium. They would be working towards that, but they cannot because of the moratorium. So they would seek to keep their.
But
approvals in place.
if you went ahead and began that operation, you'd have a building permit and then you would be in effect within the guidelines, right?
Moratorium stuff till construction.
So,
So if I,
Prohibited any construction.
I don't know that you're understanding the question there. Let me just help. So the moratorium will prohibit for a period of 6 months temporarily any action. People won't be able to apply for approval, won't be able to be reviewed for approval, won't be able to get approvals, and won't be able to get a building permit. So if this resolution is passed, his client will not be able to build for 6 months.
and what you are asking, and you're saying since your permit would expire during that time period.
Correct.
The ability to extend that.
Correct.
Commensurate with the period of the moratorium. So you're not stopped during the moratorium.
It's not that, well, we would be stopped.
Right.
It's just that our
But it doesn't,
remove our approvals
right,
essentially
doesn't
what would
remove it,
happen.
right.
Correct.
And Mr. Ahern called me about this last week, I think, and I looked at the law and just astounded at how well written it was, and it covers everything. The planning board would not necessarily be able to even grant an extension.
So as clarification, what I think I hear you say is that current ordinance, the way it is written, this project that we're talking about would fall outside those parameters.
It would fall inside those parameters.
It meets the requirements of the ordinance as it's currently. as
Oh,
it's-
of the new ordinance.
Of the new
Excuse me. I don't know the answer to that. My understanding is it's, there's changes, it won't
the
be that,
proposed.
but I don't know the
Ordinance.
extent to which it will require changes.
Thank you.
If I may,
Mhm.
it would still be permitted where it's proposed. It's in the industrial district, so it's still a permitted use in that district. There are some minor, I would call them document or plan changes that would need to be made, but not anything,
No game stoppers.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you've read the new ordinance as drafted?
The draft that's available on the website. I don't know if there's a different draft, but I can say I read the draft that's on the website.
And so, and then what tier classification do you believe it'll be?
3.
And so then that means that there's a series of things the planning board needs to take into account under tier 3 that you would have to ask for an amendment for your existing approval.
Understood.
Yes, so there's It's not, again, what he's saying is the current approval, he's looking for an extension of his current approval because that's going to expire. They do have signed plans, but they have not built full building permit yet. But they still are going to have to go back to the planning board and get amendments to their approval to be able to meet the new code if you adopt it the way it's proposed.
Thank you.
Mr. Ahern, why don't you explain the reasoning? It sounds contradictory that the difference is, they're going to be, if the new ordinance is passed, his client will need to either apply for a new approval or get some amendments.
Right.
Can you give the board some insight into why it's important to you, for your client to be able to get that extension?
Sure. So there's several reasons. I don't know how familiar everyone is, but there's a number of payments, and I guess for oversimplification, we can call like positions in line for certain things like interconnection and stuff like that. So the client has actually invested a large sum of money in various interconnection payments that have to go to the utility and things like that to other regulatory agencies. And if this were to lapse, there's also an issue with financing these projects where there would be a potential loss to financing. So keeping the approval current is very vital for the project. Excuse me.
So, Mr. Nadler, if we keep the approval current, if we make the little amendment and it allows them to not lose their spot, they would still need to meet all the requirements of the new law.
So the way I would explain it is, let's say you made an amendment to the local law saying, except that the planning board can grant, a single extension of existing approvals. And then, enacted a moratorium, and then in the next few months enacted a new solar law. And then the moratorium expires in 6 months. This client would not be able to build on the existing approval, the existing extended approval. Would have to come in and get amendments before our building department would issue.
So come into line with what the proposed solar
Yes,
would be.
exactly.
So they wouldn't,
Let me ask a couple more questions. If I may.
Sure.
When does your permit expire?
It's in June, beginning of June. I don't remember the exact date. I apologize.
So I would suspect, Jared, that our solar ordinance, or let me say it differently. Our solar ordinance can be passed at our next board meeting based on the fact that we had a public hearing tonight, FYI. So we can amend our solar ordinance prior to their permit expiring, and then it'd be necessary for them to comply with the ordinance as newly written. Am I saying that right?
Yes. Except that in the interim,
there's no guarantee.
their existing approval would expire. Right, could expire.
Could expire if
I
it,
guess actually June probably not, because we could withdraw the more. Doing away with the moratorium will take 3 months.
Why did we take the more?
Paperwork wise, you're saying administratively?
You have to set a public hearing, conduct a public hearing.
To end it early.
60 days, sorry, not 3 months.
because we have to end it early prior to what we approved
Yes,
after the
because
public hearing.
What the moratorium is a local law.
Yep.
And to get rid of a moratorium, it requires another local law, just like the solar ordinance. It
Right.
takes time to get it on the agenda, get it public, published notice of a public hearing.
So,
But to the point, their permit would not expire prior to us modifying this ordinance.
Right.
so Adeline had a comment.
Didn't we originally have the moratorium as a 6-month or whenever the solar ordinance is passed, whichever comes first?
I understand that that's the ordinance committee requested as town attorney, I would recommend against that.
Why?
One of the fundamental rules for a moratorium is that it be for a set term.
Okay,
Yeah, because that
set
could be,
period of time. I don't think,
I mean, in theory, it could be tabled and it could take forever for that to come up with something and then you have a no end date.
well, we had said 6 months before.
Right.
You have the inconvenience of having to withdraw the moratorium. But that doesn't really
Doesn't.
kill anybody's projects. And, you know, if it goes longer than 6 months, you can renew a moratorium.
Mhm.
So if we allow the change, we make the adjustment, we can give the planning board the authority to allow one extension for a limited period of time, which would keep you guys in the window. And it would protect us and it would make everybody have to conform to the law.
Yes.
And it would also not cause potential financial harm to your client. Not your client, your client. I said your client looking at you, but I meant to look at you.
My client.
Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, correct.
That's Terry.
Okay, Terry?
Does granting an exemption handicap us in any other way? Chris, I mean, you give it to one, do we open ourselves up for somebody else? I don't know that there is somebody else, but somebody else to come in and say, hey, how about me?
I don't know that there is anybody else either, but I put some thought into this. And if there is somebody else who has an existing approval, they would be eligible for an extension as well. Or, excuse me, be eligible to ask the planning
To ask for the
board
extension.
They still can't build a solar project.
Okay, I don't know that there is anybody. I don't think
There
there is really, but.
Okay.
Could I also ask, I mean, can you say, where is this project? I mean, what is the project? We keep calling it the project, but what is it? And where is it?
I'm sorry, did he say what is or where?
Where is the
Where-
what and where?
Where's it
It
located?
is,
2890 County Road 10.
yes.
And this is what the planning board reviewed
Oh.
a couple of years ago. Bob, do you recall, you have some insight into it?
This is right now.
Approved, and then it was changed companies to another one.
that
Right.
makes sense.
And we approved it.
Okay.
So Bob, do you have any, being on the planning board, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Any comments or thoughts? I would put Chuck on the spot, but he is conveniently, he's still celebrating the Eagles' big win on Sunday. He's still celebrating.
Sliding down poles.
Yeah, he's climbing up greased light poles. So,
As vice chair to the planning board, I would say you're talking along the same language that I would like to have is not letting or not having him lose his spot, but also giving planning board the authority to change or give that exemption, but also mandate the amendment to go to the new law.
right. Okay.
And, you know, to be fair, and Bob is good about this, Chuck is, the whole board is good about this, and, you know, staff and MRB group will, if we grant it, if an extension is granted, it's usually by resolution, and it would say, you know,
Okay.
and by the way, you're gonna have to comply with the new law.
Right. Yeah, and I just want to make it clear too that it's an extension. They're not exempted from anything. It's an extension to allow the permit to not die. You know, to not get a silent veto, if you will, for lack of a better,
Yeah.
comparison.
Just for clarification, if I could real quick, so we've used a couple words interchangeably, so it's an approval, they do not have the ability for a permit. So they wouldn't be able to start construction, it's just their
Right.
approval from. the
Right.
planning board.
And the way you phrased that, Jared, made me think,
Really.
it's not an exemption for this project, it's an exemption for the planning board,
Mhm.
which usually has the authority to accept applications, review applications, and grant site plan approval, and grant extensions of site plan approval. Now they can do one of those four things
Right.
at their discretion.
And it sounds like they're comfortable with that too.
And this is
I
wholly
respect that.
within the industrial zone?
Yeah. All right,
Sounds good.
any other questions or comments? On the board? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on this project? This moratorium, sorry. Anyone else like to be heard on the moratorium? Anybody online?
Yes.
Oh, Bob? Sorry, I was looking over there. Come on up, Bob.
I'm Bob DiCarlo, dairy farmer here in Canandaigua and chairman of the town ag committee. I just wanted to speak in favor of the moratorium. Not against solar, but I think we can find better places to put it instead of some of the best farmland in the state. And I think that from what I've seen, the town has been creative and headed in the right direction on some of the things I've heard and some of the thoughts as to how to do that. But once we lose some of this farmland, it's never going to come back. If the projects are decommissioned after 20 or 30 years, the farms that were farming that may not even be around anymore if we lose some of that land. So I could say that that land will probably be lost as farmland forever. If we're talking about doing different types of agriculture within the solar panels, that's good to talk about, but it's difficult for businesses just to change their business model to make that work. If it's a large grain farm that was farming that land, they've got a lot of investment in equipment, grain bins, that type of stuff. And they need to farm the way they've been farming to be able to pay for that. If you're a dairy farm, you're going to need that land to produce feed. So that's my reasoning, that I think that we need to focus if we're going to have solar in Canandaigua, to do it in different areas and not on some of the best land. And the moratorium will give the town more time to consider the change of the ordinance and what the best path forward is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anyone else like to be heard at this time? Any other board members? Okay, without objection. Oh, Terry, you all set?
I'm good.
All right. All right, so at this time, I'd like to declare the public hearing closed. And we do have one more. Second public hearing is public hearing on a local law to amend Town Code Chapter 220-62.2, large-scale solar energy systems to reflect changes in solar technologies coupled with the goals of the town's comprehensive plan. I neglected to say the other resolution, but this pertains to resolution 44 for tonight. At this time, I declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone who would like to be heard and speak to this issue at this time?
Hi, my name is Chet Feldman, and on behalf of Distributed Sun, I'm going to share these comments and leave them for the record as well. So Distributed Sun does support the town of Canandaigua's thoughtful and robust moratorium process for local law number 10 of 2016. In our decades-long time of working in New York State, we've been through many of these with towns and provided feedback and waded through these to help execute on what we consider responsible projects in those jurisdictions. So, however, here in Canandaigua, we do object to the coarse and broad usage of zoning regulations to limit tier 3 and tier 4 solar arrays, which effectively bans the use of the development of solar in the AR1 and AR2 district. The amendment as proposed, in our opinion, fails to consider the changing dynamic of the electrical grid as it's developing, fails to consider the concessions and benefits that can come from new investment and new business, and fails to consider how banning one use may lead towards another use based on economics in the future. So when I talk about the electric grid undergoing a transition, as governments mandate more and more clean energy, that means business leaders are working towards going towards lower costs to provide benefit out to the public through electricity. Large scale solar plants such as nuclear, coal, And even some gas plants are becoming increasingly more challenging to build and provide electricity out to the public. So the idea that a solar plant can be built in some other jurisdiction and deliver power to your current location is becoming a little outdated. Distributed generation, which is a style of work that Distributed Sun does, that allows energy generation to go out into different locations and provide local benefits such as investment in the electricity grid or local resilience of that electricity grid. So bans and barriers will contribute to the, exacerbating this current inflationary period and lead to an increase in electricity costs. Moving on, tier 3 and tier 4 scale solar energy facilities have the ability to slot into development rather than sticking out or impeding it. The net elevation of all our solar facilities is a maximum of 15 feet, which is shorter than your conventional single-story home. Based on good planning and regulation, the solar plants can be visually screened year-round with subtle greenery, and it can reduce visual impact. And in specific, Canandaigua is a very agriculturally active community. We are very aware of that. We believe that grazing can coexist with solar facilities. The American Solar Grazing Association has actually strong roots in Ontario County. It's been operating at a plant in the town of Seneca since 2016. Sheep grazing is different than conventional row cropping with the requirements for grain bins and large equipment, but it can be a way to maintain agricultural character, one that private industry does support too. Third, in the current environment of inflation and specifically rising housing costs, residential development is a strong growth industry. When the option to build solar is taken away from landowners as a method of generating revenue off their land, they will naturally be pushed towards other options like multifamily residential builds. Landowners we are working with quietly enjoy their land in Canandaigua. However, I am not aware of their succession plans or long-term future sale plans. In an attempt to protect agriculture from solar, is the town carefully considering how to protect agriculture from the largest single loss of agricultural land, that is residential development, according to the American Farmland Trust? Distributed Sun has been operating for more than 10 years in New York State, and we have always attempted to engage with our towns. We wholeheartedly support the moratorium, but we stand at the ready to help more thoughtful policy. I look forward to an invitation to a future board meeting or working session to help craft language that can help Canandaigua maintain its identity while remaining open for currently and inevitable energy transition.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll take it and then I'll hand it over to the clerk.
All right, thank you very much. Yes. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard? Sir.
Hi, my name's Daniel Bennett. My wife owns the property on 4575 North Road. And we've been looking to do large scale solar in the town Canandaigua for several years. And just wanted to talk about most of the proposed larger scale, but not huge scale, are the tier 3s, as you've now defined them. And the tier 4s are the huge scale ones. But the consideration of the tier 3s not being allowed in the AR1, AR2, or at least the AR1 zones that I'm familiar with, is something that I think should be reconsidered, because some of the AR1 zones might be well suited for the large scale solar tier 1s. Some other AR1s may not be well suited. And so I do understand what you're up against here. So when you develop your new solar law, I would like to see it, and I'm sure others would too, a little bit more definitive on what is allowed or what's not allowed in the different zonings. One of the considerations that I'm sure people have talked about, and you've talked about also, is there's very limited properties in the industrial zoning and the commercial zoning in the town of Canandaigua. And out of those properties, we also look at where the substations are located. And the substations and the locations of them are dependent on how much the capacity is to basically feed solar back into those substations. And if there's not much capacity left on the substations that are connected to the commercial, the last of the commercial and the industrial zoning in the town of Canandaigua, then what you're doing is you're totally eliminating tier 3 development in the town of Canandaigua. I don't think that's what you're trying to do here, but that could be a consequence of changing the law and not permitting it. I do believe that there should be quite great limitations because Canandaigua, the town of Canandaigua is, one of the most beautiful and picturesque communities in not just upstate New York, but all, around the country. And therefore, in the scenic view shed areas, which you've identified, absolutely, those areas should be, well kept and prevented from establishing some other developments that, you may not like in those areas. So I do absolutely understand and agree with that. I'm jumping back into this, into the area where I see that the moratorium, if the option is there between the new solar law as it's written now or the moratorium, then of course the moratorium would give you the ability to identify maybe a little bit better restrictions or opportunities in the different zoning areas and may be able to define it differently. One of the things I grew up on a farm, I support farming and agricultural, but there's also a way to look at the agricultural and, I've been to a lot of board meetings when this whole solar law started years ago. And there was a lot of discussion about not using prime farmland or not allowing prime farmland for solar projects. And I still believe that's probably a very good thing. But there is so much subprime, not prime farmland out there available. And a lot of these farmers, a lot of people that own those properties, they could do much better by leasing out their property for solar and receiving rent for their property on solar when they're not receiving much of anything for their property on agricultural. If it's not prime agricultural, that's, wheat or grain or whatever else. There's a lot of good properties out there that should be considered and are good candidates for a well-done, well-managed, well-screened solar project in the future. And I'd hate to see that being excluded from the town of Canandaigua, because if you do that, like I said, there's not a lot of industrial or commercial property available to do it. And you're basically excluding solar development from the town in the future. The other things that I don't know if people realize is the cost of electricity is starting to go up, and it will continue to go up. We've been kind of at a lull for the last 5 years, and I think people have understood that the lull that we've been in and gotten used to the lull that we've been in. But if you look across the country and look at the trends, the electrical prices are going up. And what that means with the solar industry is that solar is now proven to be cheaper to produce energy, electricity out of solar than out of most other types of power plants, out of most other, environmentally polluting power plants also. And therefore, if you have the distributed solar farms in your area, and distributed is like the gentleman before me talked about, was that it's local. You're not buying electricity from 100, 200 miles away. It's keeping that energy is not losing. There's a lot of loss when you transmit that energy for down distances for the power grid. And if you produce it locally and you use it locally, it benefits everybody, and it's going to keep the prices down. And you're going to see that the electricity prices will stay down if you have the option to buy the electricity from solar. Thank you.
Thank you. So I put, already put someone else on the spot. So Mr. Carlo is chairman of the Ag Committee. Could you speak to your feelings on the solar law? What you feel, what your thoughts are on it?
Yeah, we've been able to review it pretty extensively in our committee meetings. I think it is going in the right direction as far as really limiting solar, because even if we said we're gonna limit it on one type of soil type, just like housing creep, that's gonna create other types of creep on land that's just gonna keep pushing in and make parcels less desirable to farm if it's only on a portion of a parcel. Or just create smaller fields, or difficult access to fields. So the committee has agreed that what we've reviewed so far is the direction we think it should go.
Okay. All right, thank you. Bless you. Bless you. That's a lot of blessings. Did you get all those in the record? Okay, all right. Anybody else like to be heard at this time? I assume your name's still John?
It is.
Okay, perfect.
I'll try to be real brief. It's just a couple of comments, again, most of which are in the letter. There was a little confusion on our part. The decommissioning requirement that all projects, at least that's how it reads from my perspective, that all projects are required to follow the Department of Ag and Markets decommissioning and restoration guidelines. It's a little unclear why a project that is not on ag soils or farmland or in an ag district whatsoever would be required to follow those guidelines if it's not agricultural soil or even, has the ability to produce a crop. So that is one thing perhaps to consider, maybe just specifically tailor that so that guideline isn't applied so generally. The soil sampling requirement, from our perspective, it's a little vague. It doesn't really tell an applicant in the process what they're sampling for. I don't know if you all are aware of this, but the number of constituents that just under, DC guidelines or that a lab can analyze for is quite extensive. So without some type of parameters and numeric values and what the guidance is there, we don't understand what this is applying to do. There's also a section that refers to the panels as hazardous waste. We would take exception to that. We don't believe the town would have the ability to designate something such as solar panels as hazardous waste. We believe that's within DEC's purview and their regulations, which they have not done. And there is essentially a prohibition on battery storage over 1 megawatt. I'm not sure if you all have been following the state's position in changing guidance on this issue, but so as the CLCPA and everything has come across, the state has recognized that not only are we going to need more renewable sources of energy, but we're also going to need storage of those renewable resources. Because there are times where windmills don't spin and the sun's not out for solar to produce power. Also, this helps with peaking when there's an excess demand, hot days, stuff like that. So I don't know if the concern behind battery storage is the safety aspect. I will say, in my experience, there are a number of engineering firms and essentially retired firefighters that have backgrounds in the fire code and UL listings and the safe placement and design of these. So if it's a concern of being able to site these safely versus just not wanting them, I think there is an ability to put in a battery and energy storage system regulation that would allow the town to do so instead of just zoning them out. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else like to be heard on this issue at this time? Any board members like to be heard?
We'll talk about it later.
Okay. All right, so at this time, I declare the public hearing closed. We'll now move on to reports of officials, department heads. Jim, do you have anything for highway?
No.
Okay. That's it. Jean?
We have been extremely busy in the office, especially today. Expected to continue for the next couple of days. I'm also requesting an executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular person.
Okay. All right, thank you. Town manager, Doug, do you have anything additional? I do not have anything additional to add at this time. Anything from finance, Adeline?
No, it's time.
Okay, Terry, planning?
No, not at this time.
Hey, John, ordinance?
We've just been working on short-term rentals and should have something for the board here in the next couple of months.
Perfect, thank you. And then economic development? Report yet. No report yet. ECB, Adeline?
Nothing further. There's
Okay.
your annual report in here.
Mark, Parks?
Yeah, we did have our a meeting last week. Again, always want to thank Lindsay every time we we talk about our meeting. She does a great job for us. But the biggest thing for Parks and Rec right now is really working on the partnership with the YMCA. And Lindsay's working on a plan how they will be training our lifeguards this year. So it's not something that we have to do in-house. In addition, the rec program will go live, I believe, February 1st. So that will advertise the summer camp openings. So people can log in and they can do all their registration, everything for summer programming online. So really that was, the most timely thing that we talked about at our meeting. In addition, we talked about some of the bigger projects for 2023 with phase 2 work at Outhouse Park, Motion Junction, which will be kicking off this spring. That's if you recall, the pavilion that will be built at Motion Junction. So that work again to start shortly. As Jared mentioned, the goal for the uplands at Onondaga, the first part of that plan will be working on a road so that we have better access to be able to get to the uplands and further what's that going to look like. We have the MRV plan with potential cabin sites and everything. But the biggest thing really for this spring will be to have a better access road to be able to get up there and be able to do the work that needs to be done. We also talked about the new land that was purchased by the town next to McJanet Park. And there's been some hiking around there looking at a potential picnic site that can be accessed, possibly even from a car. Just a new little spot to go in and maybe have a picnic table and some chairs. Maybe some additional little trails in that area as we continue to develop that area. Blue Heron Park, with Uptown moving ahead, we talked about how that's probably gonna be one of the next big things that comes up. If you've driven by there, you've seen all the land up there that's been cleared and everything. But as that takes shape, that'll give the Parks and Rec Committee a better gauge as to what is appropriate for Blue Heron Park. We didn't want to jump in and make changes that then after we saw the new development, it really didn't fit or didn't make sense with what was happening at Blue Heron Park. So as that moves forward, I think things at Blue Heron will take a better shape. We also move forward with our planning. We're going to continue with 2 summer concerts at Outhouse Park and a movie night. Karen has recently met with the Victor Parks and Rec and worked on some opportunities for a partnership with some senior programming. So, we look forward to having some of those opportunities for this year. And another thing that came up, this was kind of a new to us and it came up during our meeting, but we want to explore with the expansion of all the wireless. If you ride down any town in Canandaigua right now, there's somebody's stringing some new fiber somewhere and there's all sorts of cones and everything else. But with the expansion of the wireless, we're thinking about the possibility of having better internet access at the parks and possibly for things like security, added security cameras. And the other piece that we talked about in our meeting was the potential to have, not a system like this, but a large screen TV, maybe at Outhouse Park in the building at Outhouse Park, or something at Schoolhouse where somebody that does rent one of our facilities could come in and cast from their phone everything these days you can show. If somebody rents for a birthday party, that maybe they could have a little picture display or those types of things. But we want to flesh that out a little bit more and maybe discuss with the town board the possibility of adding that type of technology to some of our buildings in the park. So really that was the big thing to get us kicked off for 2023. So I was glad to see one of the goals that you came up with on Saturday related to the park. So.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
May I ask Mark something? Mark, could you just share with me and or the town board your meeting schedule for the year?
We're same fourth Wednesday of every month.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Bob, will you hear anything else from Ag Committee? Other Bob. Yeah, you're like, wait a minute.
Bob, and what?
Yeah, too many. You got to separate you guys. Yeah, no, you can't sit behind each other anymore. Not in a row. Okay, Karen, your report's in here. Anything additional from your committee?
No,
Okay.
I'll have something for the next meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We had the report from the Gateway Signs. The reports from project teams were in here. Dennis, I saw you online. Do you have anything to share for the tree team?
Next meeting is March 13th.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. All right. Now we have time for another privilege of the floor. Would anyone like to be heard at this time? Anyone online? Okay, seeing no hands, we'll move on to our resolutions and motions. What's that?
I'm just in judge press.
Yeah. Okay, resolution 2023-30. We cannot vote no on this because it was already handed out. So this is just a rubber stamp. Recognizing Judge David Pearl for 50 years of service to the town of Canandaigua.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Carries. Resolution 31, acceptance of the monthly financial reports.
Move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 32, acknowledgement and authorization of budget transfers by town manager.
So moved. For second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 33, authorizing 2022 budget transfers for highway fund relative to equipment repairs and road salts.
Motion. Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 34, authorizing 2022 budget transfer for Canandaigua Consolidated Water District relative to water purchases and utilities.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 35, authorizing the 2023 budget adjustment for the highway fund for purchase of a snowplow truck with equipment.
So move.
So take whoever you want for a second, Gene. Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, as you did in the finance committee, if Mr. Fletcher could just real quick explain.
The truck was purchased in 2021. We covered it in 22. The truck was not delivered in 22. We did do that and cover it twice. So we carried the funds from this line into unappropriated fund balance for 23. We'll take the unappropriated fund balance into 23 increase the 5110 to higher line by 246. And decrease the unappropriated fund balance to 246, the balance of budget.
So I had you explain that so you could show off that you know how to do it. It's a great job, thanks.
So basically, to summarize, we're trying to buy it again.
Still buying.
We're still in the
Still
process.
buying it, if
We're in
it ever
year,
shows up.
going into year 3 of buying this plow truck.
Yes.
Hopefully this time it sticks. Third time's a charm. Okay, we had our discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 36, authorizing 2023 budget adjustment for general fund purchase of a pickup truck for the Parks Department.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
It's kind of the same thing on that one.
It's the same thing as I just explained.
Okay. One of these days, we're gonna buy a truck. Maybe even 2. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 37, authorizing the appropriation of fund balance in Canandaigua Consolidated Water District for the purchase of new water meters.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I was just curious, Jim, what do these meters cost each? Is there roughly, not,
Like 310, 350, 310 for every dollar piece.
okay. Just
And-
curious.
And this is because we did not receive the state grant that you're in.
Doug
Right.
applied for the second time for a grant, the GIGA grant. As you know, like GIGA grant for smart water meters. And we applied 2 years ago. Got feedback of why it wasn't approved. Doug applied again. And we did not receive funding. Big part of this is our median income exceeds other municipalities, so we're not favorably favored when it comes to certain grants. So what we're doing is we're taking unappropriated fund balance from consolidated water for increase capital line by 150 to purchase the water meters, 500 of them. For 23.
And what's the life on those?
This would be 20.
20-year? Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 38, authorizing the appropriation of general fund balance for the deputy town clerk position.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 39, authorization to encumber funds from the 2022 adopted town budget to the 23 adopted town budget.
So moved.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 40, acknowledgement of the town clerk 2022 annual monthly receipt reports and bank reconciliations.
Move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 41, authorize the purchase of a Bobcat Toolcat utility vehicle.
So moved.
Hey, move seconded. Any discussion? So can you clarify the purpose of this one, Jim, for everybody?
There's, the first purpose is for the bid, which is, was created last year to do sidewalk maintenance. Uptown. Just to clear snow and snow removal where needed, also salt, and then as we discussed the other day, it can be utilized in the parks department for helping with trail maintenance and a lot of trail maintenance.
And plowing, when they start, when we get all the, like, outhouse paved, you should be able to plow that there, yeah.
So we had some discussion in the finance committee about whether this should be purchased through, for the Uptown bid or through the Parks Department, and the opposite area, essentially renting it back from the whoever's purchasing it. I think we all pretty much decided it made sense to have the Uptown bid as written, be the one purchasing it. And then when loaning to the Parks Department or whomever to charge them for that use. Is that correct?
I thought, well, we discussed it at length. Yeah, and it was felt that maybe we should look at the general fund and then maybe charge back the bid for its use.
I thought we
I remember
decided.
it for a long
that. Yeah.
Because if we're gonna park it at the, if we're gonna house it at the bid. Yeah, either way.
I apologize, you're right.
That's okay. I just wanted to clarify that because we did have a long discussion of that in the finance committee, because it sounds like both wanted to use it, but the primary use would be and the
And
storage.
I think it came down to since home base would be in the bid.
Yeah.
Then
Storage station.
stored at the fire station, then it can be,
And it can put a specific commercial plate on, we
Yeah.
can drive it from place to place, it travels 30 miles an hour.
so any of us could drive it.
Maybe we can drive it.
Okay, because,
Town
Yeah,
law
fun
says supervisors can't drive the equipment.
but I will,
Town attorneys can.
no, I'm gonna veto that law.
Only if you can say Bobcat Toolcat 10 times fast.
Yeah, why is that Bobcat Toolcat? Why can't it just be
Well, it's
Bobcat?
actually UW 56.
That's much easier.
Utility what? Utility workforce or workhorse or utility something? Yeah. Okay, I will not say that again. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Now you have your Bobcat Toolcat. You're welcome. Resolution 42, authorization for the purchase of a Ford F-250 pickup truck for the Parks Department.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Where are you? You went to 52?
42.
42.
Yep.
Page 11.
Yep, page 11.
Oh, I got flipped over backwards.
Yep.
Got it, sorry.
Any discussion? You good?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 43, adopting a local law to impose a 6-month moratorium on the review, approval, permitting and or construction of large-scale solar energy systems in the town of Canandaigua.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Moved and seconded, and I'm assuming we'll have some discussion.
If, so after discussion, if someone wanted to say so moved to a motion to amend the proposed local law by adding the following to section 4, subparagraph A at the end. Quote, notwithstanding the foregoing, the planning board may grant individual extensions of previously granted site plan approval pursuant to town code section 220-72, left parentheses B, right parentheses, provided that any site plan so extended shall be required to comply with all zoning regulations in effect at the time of construction, including any amendments or revisions to said site plan that may be required by said zoning regulations. End quote.
So can I see a copy of that?
Read my handwriting.
Good luck with that.
I was trying to write it down.
Yeah, I stopped. So any other discussion on this?
In summary, what you're saying is that a new project or a project that's currently in the works and has a permit could be extended. However, at time of build, it has to meet the zoning ordinance that the board will eventually put in place.
That's in effect at the time.
That is exactly what I'm saying. Now, if for some reason the town board enacts this moratorium with the exemption and then decides, you know what, we're good with our current solar law. Let's stop talking about the revisions. 6 months from now, when presumably Mr. Ahern's client has received their extension of valid site plan approval, and that would be something they could build as is, if there's no change to the zoning solar regulation.
And there's an N of 1 out there permit right now.
That is what confirmation was received from the town planner.
And in your opinion, are you comfortable with this?
I am.
Do you feel it's necessary?
No, I feel like it's fair. Understanding the development process. There's a lot of red tape tied up with financing and obtaining grants and getting various state and federal and bank level approvals. And when you lose an approval, even if you can get it back pretty easily, you go to the end of the line and it's devastating to a project. I spoke with Mr. Ahern in the hall just now, confirming the language is, acceptable, and that his client is not planning on challenging the moratorium as is. They're comfortable with the moratorium with that exception.
All right, since I have this in front of me, I will make the motion to amend the resolution.
No, local law.
To amend the local law. And this is section 4. This is section 4, subparagraph A. And I'll just read it so it's official. Notwithstanding, and this would be amended as indicated. Notwithstanding the foregoing, the planning board may grant individual extensions of previously granted site plan approval pursuant to town code, section chapter 22, section 42B, provided that any site plan so extended shall be required to comply with all zoning regulations in effect at the time of construction, including any amendments or revisions to said site plan that may be required by said zoning regulations.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it was moved and seconded.
Is that just on that?
Okay, so that's on the amendment, and now we need to vote.
Jean's gonna want it.
Jean's gonna want it, I know.
Perfect.
Okay.
And then.
All right, so all in favor of. Okay, so now can I get a motion to approve resolution number 43 as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Local law number.
Number 1? Okay. And that one carries. Resolution 44, referral of proposed local law to the Ontario County Planning Board and continuing a public hearing relating to amendment to Town Code Chapters 220, Section 62.2, large scale solar energy systems.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Can I mention there are a couple typos in here? Is that possible? I don't know who wants to take them down, but maybe that Nadler guy.
There are a couple
There's a couple
typos in
typos.
the local law.
If you look in your draft, page 2 of 6, this is the very top, it's section B. B subsection 2D. The sentence starts with noise level projection. It's very top of the page on page 2 of 6. It says inverts instead of inverters.
Which one am I supposed to be inverted?
Is it talking about the noise?
I think it's the invert.
It should be the inverter.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And then same page, it says letter H. The plan shall detail planned disposal, not plain or whatever that word is attempting to be. And then the top of page 3, the next page. It's not really a typo, but my own personal preference. It says, the board shall take into consideration comments from the town's agricultural committee, environmental conservation committee. I would like to add the trails master plan in there as well.
So that would require an amendment.
So that section pertains to boards that are advisory in nature and given
Okay.
advice. We don't have a trails
Advisory
board.
board, yeah,
Okay. Just the parks committee.
which could follow the trails master plan and that, looking at that. Okay,
Can we add parks committee then?
we'd need an amendment, so we'll have to go
No,
through
you
the,
don't.
you don't need an amendment?
If you're referring, if you're not approving it tonight, you don't need a motion for amendment.
This is for sending it to the
Yeah,
county.
Passing it on, right?
Unless there's an objection from a board member, I'm comfortable with consensus direction given to the town manager
That's fine.
for sending it,
Are you guys okay with adding that, comfortable with adding that? Okay.
not on approving of local law, but
Yeah.
on passing forward.
We just have to change the date.
That's the typos I found.
27th. Is that the date of the town board meeting?
Right. Yes, February
Typo, like,
27th,
Yeah, that's
and that's just a typo, so that doesn't, that's just a change in that. Okay, any other discussion on this amendment, on this resolution?
I just want to officially confirm that the ag committee has reviewed this. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, and again, this is sending it to the county to take a look at it and continuing the public hearing until the 27th. All right, all in favor? Aye. That carries. Resolution 45, so resolutions 45 and 46, I would like to lay over until our next meeting. So those will be laid over until the 27th.
Mr. Supervisor, you just said 45, 46?
45 and 20, yeah, 45 and 46.
We already did 20.
Yeah, you almost got me to say 45 and 26. So
Jared,
the- Yeah,
Jared,
Terry.
you can block them.
I want to block something, but you guys always shoot me down. Too late. You should have said that before. So 45 and 46 will be laid over until the 27th for some more editing. Resolution 47 requiring town board members to complete annual training.
So moved. Nobody wants to. Nobody wants to. Wow, didn't know it was
Well,
that
you know
controversial.
you know who brought up that idea, then, don't you? Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I think it's a great idea. Whoever came up with it is fabulous.
This is the gold star. All in favor?
Aye.
That's good. 48, resolution 48, accepting resignation of the clerk to the town justice.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 That takes longer to do that. Resolution 49, appointment of an assistant assessor.
The what?
Moved and seconded. Now, point of discussion on this. We still have the same assistant. Now the new job title for Michelle will be assistant assessor, not a new person, just a new job title. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Carries. Resolution 50, appointment of full-time parks laborer.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Carries. Resolution 51, appointment of part-time clerk.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Carries. Resolution 52, acknowledgement and approval of Environmental Conservation Board's 2022 annual report and 2023 goals.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? So I'd like to thank you for the report and the continued work of the ECB, because they do a valuable service reviewing applications and keeping them in line with our environmental goals. So thank you for that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 53, accepting the proposal from Lancaster Log Cabins to purchase cabins for Ononda Park and authorizing town manager to execute documents.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I wanted to confirm, I think we spoke with Lindsay during the finance meeting that this was for one cabin.
Now, the price, the only question I have, the price quoted was for 3. The question I have, there's $1,000. So on page 187 of the agenda.
14.
187 attachment 14. It's 187 on this thing. I don't know page number. So yeah, so attachment 14. It mentions in the pricing $1,000 discount for groups of 3. So will we lose that? I guess my question was with that 3 made me wonder if it was a proposal for 3. And they're 56.
And there are 3 different units, 3 different prices. So which one are we gonna land on?
So I believe it's this one that's labeled 18 by 27 cabin with 10-foot porch, she had around the car. And see, she used the total purchase price of $57,750, but for you are correct. It may actually be $58,750 because that is $1,000. The big thing with getting the order in, we're being told to select 6 months.
All right. Okay. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. Oh, we have to approve it first.
So then you have to change,
So we have to.
that would be a resolved paragraph to
All right.
57 to 758.
Do we know,
That's a not to exceed, so it's up to negotiate. That's right.
do we know if the 3 cabins are different prices?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Do we need a resolution to change that to 58,750? Okay. So the understanding that 57,750 could be increased to 58,750 to adjust for the lack of the multi-purchase discount. Any further discussion?
So do you want me to change it to 58,750 in the resolution?
Yes.
Yeah.
Motion somebody's gonna be about to make is gonna say, the motion is by consensus for
Increase the price to 58.
2023-53 with a max price of 58.
So we do need a motion to amend it because we already have a discussion. We have not
I
amended
move to
it.
amend the resolution to be 58,750.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion's been amended, 58,750. And we had a motion, so let's re-motion it then. So can I get a motion to approve the resolution as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Moving seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now that we purchased it, I can't wait to see the cabins. There we go. Took a minute to buy it, but we'll get it moving. Huh? Resolution 54, accepting Gar Associates Associates proposal for professional appraisal consultant services for the Uptown Form-Based Code District and authorizing the town manager to execute the agreement.
So moved.
Now it is moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 55, accepting 2 permanent trail easements related to tax map 70.00-1-69-111 and directing the town manager to sign said easements and further directing the town clerk to record said easements at the Ontario County Clerk's office.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Get a motion to approve the minutes from January 9th.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Minutes are approved. Jean, can you read the bills, please?
Certainly. Utility abstract dated January 13th, 2023, totaling $206,183.06. For the general fund of $19,270.82. Highway fund of $615.44. Capital projects of $2,117.11. Lighting district of $1,388.30. Water district of $182,927.91.29. Town board abstract dated January 30th, 2023, was 2022 invoices totaling $281,403.45. General fund of $97,352.87. Highway fund of $147,996.55. Capital projects of $22,210. Water districts of $13,744.03. And the town board abstract dated January 30th, 2023 for 2023 invoices totaling $564,826.76. And the general fund of $178,507.55. Highway fund of $107,123.08. And water districts of $279,196.13.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to approve the bills?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Bills are. We have one final privilege of the floor. Would anyone like to be heard at this time? Seeing no hands.
Are you gonna put on the next town board agenda the results of the state policy as well?
Yes, please. Because that'll need some, just to be clarified. Thank you. All right, so we do have a request for 3 privileges, three executive sessions tonight. 2 for the purpose of discussing the employment history of a particular individual. And 1 to discuss the sale or lease or transfer of real property where public disclosure could affect value. I don't anticipate any action for the executive sessions. You are always free to mingle until we're done and come back and visit before you go home. Can I get a motion to enter executive session? We have a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thanks everybody for coming in. Okay, we've now exited executive session and we're back in the regular meeting. We have no intent to take any action at this time. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, meeting is adjourned.
I want to stay longer.
Yeah.